What makes jungle complicated is the ability to path and adapt one's pathing to the situation at hand. Where do you need to be? Why do you need to be? When do you need to be? In this jungle guide, I'm going to have a look at why you need to have dynamic jungle pathing and how that will affect every single game you play. Now, if you watch pro play, you see a lot of boring stuff, straight up full clears, maybe a bit of counter jungling, and then they counter jungle you. It's really boring. No one has the confidence and ability to do off-meta or adaptive pathing, whereas being able to shift your pathing in dynamic ways and adapt it in unique environments. This, my jungle friends, is the best way to climb no matter what rank you might be and no matter what jungle class or style you might play. Please do consider leaving a like and of course subscribing, maybe commenting because people aren't commenting for some reason. But first, Ross has a message.
Hello. Have you ever wanted to get buffed like me? Well, that's just not possible because of how glorious I am. But you can still play games and earn through buff.game. Buff is a loyalty program that rewards gamers simply for playing. As an authorized app of Overwolf, you can play and earn points from League of Legends to Valorant and more. And then you take these shiny buff points and you exchange them for Steam credit, Riot Point cards, skins, game keys, and way more. It's as if you get a pentakill level 1 and watch the orbs flow through you. Notice the new skin? All from Buff. In addition, Buff now supports video recording highlights, which will automatically record the highlights while you play. You can edit them and post them to your Buff profile in the app, so that everyone can see how amazing you are. Like Rust. Available for free worldwide. Download Buff with a link in the description below to play and earn.
How do you set up your pathing each time you leave the base to get the most out of the map through objectives and ganks? Now let's just take one from the personal archive, shall we? Obviously, I do play Zyra jungle, people know this. Now, if you're a Kayn, what do you want to do against me in those situations? What do you do better? What should our pathing be in terms of dynamics that allows us to suppress and deny the off-meta and weird jungler by simply shutting her down early? Well, firstly, a Kayn will full clear significantly faster, which means if you sequence in opposite directions, you can full clear crab, impact bot lane, go mid lane, double scuttle very easily, maybe create prior from mid to collapse on the top side, forcing the Zyra to go down. Now, if the Zyra does the Raptor camp, then of course you can sneak away tier 1 Krugs, tier 2 Raptors, and reset by the time she's had the opportunity to do the same to you. This means you give up perhaps first rotation pressure for second and third rotation pressure and stifle level 6 advantage. However, what he does, as you can see, is attempt to go on a 3-camp red side into our blue side invade. Now in this case, this is exactly why I put a control ward down, because it does all the work for me in this situation. I don't need the HP, I had no leash this game, so I was a lot lower than normally I would be. However, you can see you could smite the Gromp and snack it away. Is top lane gonna rotate? Is mid lane gonna rotate? No, in this case, no one is going to rotate. The junglers are on an island, fighting over the last piece of rotten coconut. Or rum. In this case, I hope it's rum. I'm a Scotch drinker, but if you're gonna die on an island, you might as well do it with some alcohol. However, he has no idea what Zyra jungle does or what Zyra does in a 1v1. He isn't playing around the seeds appropriately, he hasn't checked the bush for the control ward, and now he goes and does the crab, comes back to the blue, but doesn't remember that he smited it, so the Zyra can smite it and then chase him away and then swap to the other side of the map and still get a crab, and now look for bottom lane pressure, now look for mid lane pressure, and if his bot lane was turbo giga smurfing, that could be a blue side invade should it be a more aggressive jungler. And that's the thing about dynamic pathing, ladies and gentlemen, you need to be either proactive or reactive in it, and sometimes you have to decide how you want to play depending on the matchup, but sometimes a tracking savant level play counter gank can seem brilliant, but in the end it was just a Xin Zhao not knowing what the hell to do and then absolutely benefiting from his reset, while the Viego, yeah, he ganked bot lane level 3 and sequenced up. The Xin Zhao should have just gone straight to the red but didn't because no prio, and now gets rewarded for his mistakes, but at the same time the Viego goes and dies mid lane afterwards. Nothing is what it seems sometimes in game, that's why your preparation for your dynamic pathing is important, and if you expect that to go against you, then your ability to react to it is just as vital. To make my point, let's use our primary case study for this before I finish off with some more core examples. You see, here we have a Zed. Now, we discussed the Zyra vs Kayn example there, and all the options that Kayn had to destroy the Zyra, he took the worst one thinking, haha, I'm gonna be dynamic. In the end, he was predictable, so the Zyra could easily play around it. This was around your D2, D1 elo and submitted by a fellow Zyra main, except obviously someone who plays her support like a human being. But we have here a Kayn main on Zed vs Kayn. So the Zed is chilling, and he decides, aha, I'm gonna go ward the Raptors, that'll show the Kayn, I know exactly where he's going to be. But you Kayn mains in the chat, people watching this video, what are you actually thinking about doing, and what do you think the Zed should do as a Kayn main? Go on, give it a think, I'll play some elevator music for a few seconds. Yeah, that's right, your bot lane simultaneously could decide, hey, let's ward the red to protect you, but at the same time, that's not their job, is it? Because if Kane's gonna start red side and sequence down, they need their wards for trading patterns because it's a Zyra Caitlyn lane, which means you want to shove, you want pry, you're playing against a Seraphine Bard, that's what you're gonna need to do. This will also prevent the roam timers of the Bard by forcing him to be consistently under pressure under his own tower. As a Zed jungler, you need to understand this, and I think he did because he was starting on the blue side, going down. He wanted to match the cadence of the Kayn, perhaps understanding this and understanding what Kayn wants to do, but an absolute lack of fundamental preparation to dynamic pathing opens him up to absolute cheese. In fact, it's more of a personality trait at this point, but the Kayn, great use of dynamic pathing for delayed late invade, Raptors into red, into Krugs, and now he's gonna gank bottom lane. And if it isn't gankable, he can simply float on up and do his blue quadrant with a little bit of vertical jungling, and by the time the Zed realizes this, he's gonna be in deep shit. We shove at the Raptors, we realize, oh no, we've been thieved. Who could have foreseen this? Totally not him as a Kayn main, by the way, with like 500 million points. No, this VOD was quite hilarious to watch because if I show you a flashback of what Canyon did on Zed in this exact same situation in a gameplay in January, you realize, oh no, I've been cheesed. So what did he do? Well, gank bot lane. And that's exactly what Canyon did because he knew, hey look, this is gankable. I know the enemy jungler is going to be floating up to the blue quadrant and trying to control a 3 quadrant buff. I'll let him farm. Let me impact lanes and set myself up for a good second and third rotation. You see, the Zed here didn't do that. He didn't recognize, if you look at the lane states, I want you to think deeply about this. What do you actually want to do here? Bot lane is pushing. Kayn took my stuff. He's probably doing Krugs right now. Should I counter gank? Should I go to his blue side? Or should I go and steal his red side? Which would you choose? If you said red side, I understand the desire to infuse yourself with your experience, but you have no idea what you're doing to the rest of the map and to your own game plan. Watch and observe. Kayn obviously ganks bot lane. Now at this point, as I said, it's a level 2 Caitlyn Zyra lane, which means they're going to want to use that for push pressure. It is impossible to simply back off and wait for half a minute until Kayn maybe shows up somewhere else. There was also no knowledge at all that Kayn did this, and the Zed didn't point it out until it was way too late, which is why you go ahead and counter gank it. I will trust a Caitlyn Zyra Zed over a base form Kayn Seraphine Bard, especially when the Kayn is going to be in a bad situation flanking from behind. The Zed will be able to collapse 3v1 with his bottom lane, kill him, and then take his blue side. But when you sell out your bottom lane like this and the dynamic pathing of the Kayn comes through as victorious, now you're in a bit of a situation. So off he goes to the red side and does a full quadrant. Kayn knows, hey, you know what? It's pretty obvious that's what he's gonna do, not only because it's obvious to my brain, which is functioning as a jungler, but also because of the ward that gave me visual confirm. So why don't I go ahead and forgo my walls because it's a waste of time and just gank mid lane. And then of course I can take the second spawn of the Raptors right away and repeat gank bottom lane. This is a good plan to ensure vertical jungling maintains a certain levity over the early game and denies Zed the ability to fix it, which is why Zed's decision is so bad, because it enables vertical jungling way longer than you'd wanted and also puts your lanes at high risk. Now it's even more high risk when you decide, hey, I know my bot lane died, maybe they shouldn't have, maybe they should have, who knows. But why do you go mid lane knowing you saw Kayn go to the Raptors, you know Bard's gonna have roaming tempo because of the fact that bot lane was killed, and now you go ahead and flash in, you die, you give away more kills and pressure, Kayn goes to the bottom lane again, the support's backing off, the ADC is I think super frustrated and doesn't. Unfortunately in this case, bot lane is in the wrong, no one should have died, but at the same time they shouldn't have been in that situation because the Zed died mid lane for no particular reason. Now of course Kayn has set himself up for a great second and third rotation, and of course, as I sound like Max Verstappen overusing the words of course, the Zed is now in a bit of a predicament. Does he go Krugs up? Or does he go Grump down? The Kayn on the other hand says, hey, I'm gonna do my quadrant or I'm gonna gank lanes that are available. He does then go and greed on a Zac for some particular reason, and at this stage the Zed didn't even realize that the Kayn left a baby raptor. He didn't even fully check the pit to see that the Kayn had stumped him. In turn, the Kayn does die to the Zed, and with the roaming help of the Zyra decide, hey, let's put a pin in this match, try and gank top lane, get ourselves back into it, and then we can use the mistake of the Kayn to recorrect the pathing, even though his dynamic pathing was pretty good until it wasn't. But unfortunately, the Zed does things that it seems a Kayn main is used to doing but couldn't get away with because he isn't Kayn. And he dies, and everyone was sad, and that game was over pretty quickly. It was a really funny one to VOD review in the Discord, sometimes I do that, and I do feel bad for the laners who were in this game. But so far you've seen good reactive dynamic pathing, good aggressive dynamic pathing, bad aggressive dynamic pathing, and the fact that you've got Canyon in a very similar situation just doing a completely different thing should tell you a lot about high-level players, challenger players, and how they don't get put in this weird position, which is what I'm talking about. When you are jungling, you want to put enemy junglers in a what-if position, because jungle decisions 1, 2, 3 can all be good, depending on how they play out. You don't results-based it, but obviously you have to decide which is the best fit for the moment, and you have to make the best decision you can. But you would have seen from the Viego example, and I'll show it again, he went blue, wolves, grump into the bottom lane gank to set up top to bottom sequencing. The problem is he then goes raptors, krugs, and it doesn't make a lot of sense with how he's setting it up. Either way, he's pathing over the same ground twice. We have unique 3-camp clears, we have the full sequences like Evelyn will do from raptors to krugs to red into wolves, grump, blue, or you can simply go blue, grump, wolves to reset it all the way up so you can do raptors, krugs again. You have any number of reverse clears possible should you want to start on the same side and reverse opposite, and choosing the right one cannot always be easy, but the whole point is to set yourself up for a great first 5 minutes and an even greater second 5 minutes. But if we use an off-meta jungler again, I'm sorry to force it, but at the same time it puts you in these interesting scenarios of having to avoid meta junglers, of having to really think about the aggression they're going to use against you, and if you don't dynamically path, typically you're absolutely useless and you can't play the game. Now typically against a Shaco, I would like to go buff, grump, wolves, raptors down to the bottom crab and into the bottom lane gang. But sometimes it's just nice to push the envelope a little bit, but also you have to kind of understand what do they want to do, what might they do, what elo am I playing at, and most lower elo, mid elo junglers will not go for a straight invade, and again there's a lot of risk in that anyway, as you would have seen from the Kindred clip in a recent video. Now in this situation we want to do red, wolves, grump, blue because it gives us 3 after the grump, so we can use that to clear the blue faster, and obviously if someone invades you have all your abilities at your disposal. Now you notice mid lane, detaches and leaves. You notice top lane had left earlier, you can see the Graves doing a full clear and probably shifting on down. He can do that much faster. So in that situation, paying attention to the map is huge because then you can drag out, finish your camp, leave the situation, don't back lazily, swap to the other side of the map and get first blood by ganking the bottom lane. Now the Graves is stuck in the wrong situation, he's wasted his time, and the Kai'Sa now has the ability to go to the bottom side of the map with 0 pressure. Takes a crab, ganks bottom lane, because Graves shows up late, takes a tier 2 grump, counter ganks and ganks the mid lane, gets another kill, holds that, and now instead of going down to raptors, krugs, which are difficult before you get Noon Quiver, wolves have respawned, grump has respawned, you can take those, do krugs, do red, get 6, win a fight around the dragon pit because you have ultimate spike lead and a gold lead, translate that into a dragon, and now you're seeing how that snowball allows you obviously early Q evolve, early prior on heralds and drakes, and the enemy Graves is always stuck in a what if situation because he's never where he's meant to be, he's behind on tempo, and he inflicted this upon himself with a silly late invade and not an early invade. The Shaco tried the exact same thing, but the control ward does its work once more, and the Kai'Sa in this situation can simply go on down and take the bottom crab. Definitely much more tight when you're playing against a Shaco. I think it's a good idea to kind of go buff, grump, wolves, and then to the bottom crab to avoid the whole thing. You'll get the same result minus the risk, but the point is because the Shaco went ahead and did red side quadrant, top crab, and an invade, the Kai'Sa is able to dive and kill the enemy bot lane for first blood. The Shaco overcommits because he's stuck in a bit of a pressure situation due to this pathing. What if? Now I'm behind. A blue quadrant's available. Bot has prio. And then of course you can steal the grump, you can pressure him on the blue, force him to disappear, wait a little bit, steal the blue, hold bot lane, resequence your red quadrant to deny counter jungling, and likewise prime yourself for a beautiful second and third sequence that allows you tempo control on ganks, counter ganks, objectives, and now you control the river. And because you beat the enemy jungler 1v1 now, and this of course applies to any jungler, meta or off meta, your dynamic reactions and predictions for the early pathings set yourself up beautiful for first 5 minutes and second 5 minutes, and you've got to use those to get yourself fed, make the enemy jungler go, what do I do now? And what if I don't do this? And the whole time he's chasing you. You are the master of puppets, the enemy jungler is your puppet, and you can honestly do it against anyone. And it's not just about the first clear, you've seen a lot of examples here about how that translates to the second and third phase. And if the enemy jungler makes a mistake, you have to punish them, and that's of course a narrow window, because if they don't make a mistake, it's going to be a very patient game you're going to need to run. How to play from behind, I have videos on that, and we'll release another one soon. If you want to understand how to, just play early game pathing in general and make sure you're smurfing every single phase of the game, I just released a coaching video on that last week about how to gank properly. But hopefully you can see the power that dynamic pathing has in the early game, no matter what jungler you're playing, either proactive or reactive. Make sure you're being interesting. Don't just full clear and be late to things. Think about what the enemy jungler wants to do, think about what you want to do, and think about your spikes and how you want to go about the game in terms of what your impact is going to be on the lanes. And when you do that, you will climb as a jungler no matter what your elo, no matter what jungler you're playing. If you're interested more on the general theory of jungling and how to be a savant, click the box in the video in the top right. And you know what? I know what I said, I'm not going to correct it. And of course, if you want to understand the best way to play the game from a macro and theory point of view, click the video in the box in the bottom left.